Welcome to the show. You are one-on-one with Wes the Sports Guy here on YouTube and online all the time at westhesportsguy.com. Make sure you bookmark that site, westhesportsguy.com, and as always, use the hashtag #OneOnOneWes to participate in the weekly conversations about a wide variety of topics in the sports world, and we'll delve right into it with the recent happenings, or recent event, I should say, of what happened at the Thursday night game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. Normally, I would not even talk about a Thursday night football game unless something great happened within the game, between the matchups and this and that, but don't get me wrong, the game was not that great. It was not worth watching, really, until if you're into the types of events where you have players deciding to brawl with one another. It's between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns and quarterback Mason Rudolph of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as you can see from the picture, it is not pleasant to see. And it's exactly what it looks like. If you saw the highlights, if you saw the video, Myles Garrett ended up ripping the helmet off of Mason Rudolph and then he made contact with Mason Rudolph's head with his own helmet. Now, if you did not see the footage and you're still watching this, which thank you, by the way, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell also. Basically, what ended up happening is at the end of that game, that was the last drive of the game. Mason Rudolph was already being hit, sacked, all that stuff. Basically, it was not a really good showing by the Steelers offense at all. It was a good victory for the Cleveland Browns, beating a division rival. Obviously, they're still in the playoff hunt in that division. But the frustrations were beginning to mount, and if they weren't already at a tipping point, it became even maximized with Myles Garrett on that play giving a late hit to Mason Rudolph. Now, I have to say this first and foremost. Those that are arguing for a suspension of Mason Rudolph, your point is valid. It's a valid point of whether or not he should also get some type of punishment in all of this. He's going to get fined minimum. Should he be suspended? That's up for debate. I'm willing to listen to that debate, but those that are basically shifting the blame in some aspects to the quarterback in this situation, stop it. The point is not valid. It's a moot point at this juncture of the game. Myles Garrett put a late hit on Mason Rudolph. If you were Mason Rudolph, you got hit late after throwing a pass that was clearly out of your hands by the time Garrett got to you, would you react the same way? Did Rudolph intentionally kick Myles Garrett in the groin? I don't know. I'm not Mason Rudolph. The video footage speaks for itself, obviously, but if you're going to imply intent there with a guy who got hit late, mind you, I don't know if I would react any differently. I'm not excusing the behavior because you shouldn't do that regardless. But again, Mason Rudolph was hit late. That's what started this. And then, of course, Mason Rudolph, little bit of, giving him the business on the ground when Garrett's on top of him. Again, how are you supposed to react in that situation? They began to start going after each other's helmets. And, of course, it eventually led to Garrett ripping off Rudolph's helmet, slamming it over the top of his head. Thankfully, Rudolph did not get seriously hurt. And then also in the midst of that melee, you had Maurkice Pouncey, the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, begin to go full-on street brawl mode on Myles Garrett, missing him on at least 3 or 4 punch attempts, and then also applying a kick while he was on the ground by his other teammate, David DeCastro, was on top of him at that point in time. And then Larry Ogunjobi, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, I think I am, he comes in late and pushes Rudolph to the ground in the midst of all this that was going on with Myles Garrett. Now, I'm only bringing this up in the simple case of blame goes all the way around here in a situation like this. But first and foremost, Myles Garrett being suspended indefinitely the day after this on Friday is the only form of punishment that is valid at this point in time. Pouncey got 3 games. Ogunjobi got a game for pushing Mason Rudolph. There's going to be fines all over the place on many different players. The teams each got fined $250,000, if that means anything. But all in all, the blame starts at Myles Garrett. You hit the quarterback late, which was a penalty. I believe they threw a flag for that. I think. But in the midst of all the craziness, I don't know if that actually happened or not. But again, you hit the quarterback late. By today's standards, that was a late hit. And even on previous standards, that's a late hit on the quarterback. What do you expect to happen? He shouldn't have done what he did. Ripping the helmet off is one thing, but then you actually swung it as a weapon. It brought, to me, memories of a couple hockey instances. Marty McSorley swung his stick like a baseball bat at an opponent on the ice, knocked him out, and of course, his head hitting the ice didn't help matters either. McSorley got charged criminally because I believe the game happened in Canada. He got charged criminally for that action. And then Todd Bertuzzi was another name in the NHL who didn't use his stick, but basically sucker punched a guy from behind and slammed his head into the ice, ending that player's career. And I believe Bertuzzi was, I don't know about criminally charged, that the moment escapes me if he was, but I know civilly he was taken to task and he had to pay civilly for his actions. Mason Rudolph is not going to pursue any legal action to Myles Garrett. This is an NFL matter according to Rudolph's representation, his agent, and all that. So there's not going to be any charges coming there. But if he were to charge Myles Garrett, he's well within his right to do so. But criminally, there's no charges being filed, at least from Myles Garrett's perspective. That's very thankful for that. But even he admitted he shouldn't have done what he did. Is this a black eye for the NFL going forward? Kind of. It's more of a black eye for the Cleveland Browns because you lose your best pass rusher, and going forward, everybody's just going to be looking at the Browns as a dysfunctional franchise more so than they were going into this game this past Thursday. Time for the segment that believes Jeffrey Epstein didn't commit suicide. Do you remember?
You remember?
You remember when the big stink was happening with the Houston Astros, with them most likely, possibly, whatever you want to call it, stealing signs with the New York Yankees in this past season's ALCS, where the Yankees were complaining about whistling coming from the Astros dugout? Well, those claims were not substantiated. They were seen as nothing happened. MLB did investigate, but there was no evidence, nothing to back that up. Well, now we do have some circumstantial and corroborating evidence from a former player, Mike Fiers, who was a starting pitcher for the Houston Astros in their championship season of 2017, and thus moved on to play for the Detroit Tigers and Oakland Athletics since that time. And he basically said, for a story by The Athletic, which is a subscription-based column or sports site, if you want to call it that, subscription-based, you do have to pay to see the story, but it was circulated around ESPN and thus other sources like that. Mike Fiers went ahead and said that every team that he's played for since, Detroit and Oakland, he's warned them that Houston had a camera system in center field at their home ballparks when they were stealing signs during the 2017 season and the run-up to winning the World Series. Obviously, that became a big shock and a big talking point around Major League Baseball in the last week and a half. And I have to say, there's really nothing for Mike to lose in this situation. I tend to believe him. If he's got some corroborating evidence, not just, the hearsay that he's going about, but there's some pretty damning evidence that he has to say that, yes, this did happen. And I believe it still was happening, 2018, 2019. There is some video footage of 2017 with relief pitcher Denny Farquhar of the Chicago White Sox hearing the banging of what sounded like a trash can that claims was coming from the Houston Astros dugout every time he was about to throw his changeup. And then they had to change the signs in the middle of the at-bat to basically say, hey, they're gunning for this pitch. They're signaling. So they changed up the signs and they got that batter out. There's video evidence of that. If you want to Google on YouTube, it's all there. But I have to say about this going forward, this is pretty bad from a team who we figured is just so damn talented and so good at what they do that you really have to stoop to this level to be that good? It's kind of sad. Am I going to put it up there with, the ultimate sins in baseball of gambling or taking steroids and that kind of stuff? Yeah, it's pretty bad. When you're using technology and the rules are in place that says you cannot use technology to your advantage of winning ball games like this, it steals away from the authenticity. It steals away from the fact that you did it the right way. And that's what we've always come to appreciate about baseball, is that you do it the right way. It's something not a lot of people can do. It's a very hard sport to be perfect at. Yet if you're going to this level to get an advantage against your opponent, it's just sad all the way around. And this is an all-encompassing investigation starting up again by Major League Baseball. The Houston Astros said they're cooperating as well with the investigation. This is going to put a black eye on the entire organization. Not so much all of baseball, but I have to say that there were some sign-stealing accusations lobbied against the Toronto Blue Jays back in their heyday, not too long ago, but it was 2014, 15, 16, somewhere in that range, when they made it back to back-to-back trips to the ALCS. There was accusations of them stealing signs as well at their home ballpark in the Sky Dome. And those accusations were not found to be true. But if you're telling me that this is an isolated incident, you're kidding yourself. All teams try to steal other teams' signs. It happens. It's happened since the game was created. It's always going to be that way. But if you're using technology to this degree to do that, there's rules in place to stop that. You have to be punished thoroughly for it if you are found to have been doing that. But again, this needs to be a transparent investigation. Baseball needs to show exactly what they found. Whether or not they didn't find any evidence or they did find evidence, we have to see what they have in order to have some kind of appreciation for what teams do on a day-to-day basis. You want to protect the integrity of the ball, of the game, and what's happening on the field. We need to see everything. And again, this has to stop. Sign stealing is going to be there when it comes to a guy on second base and the batter at home plate. That's going to be there. You can't get that out of the game. But using technology, no, that's a step too far. Time for my feel-good story of the week, and this comes from Jack Patterson.
As the game of the century once again between number 2 LSU and number 3 Alabama, but it was the Tigers jumping out to a shocking 20-point first half lead before the Tide came roaring back in the second half and setting up a shootout for the ages that culminated. Dang it.
Don't let nobody tell you. Don't let nobody tell you it ain't, man. For real. Do you want to know the hardest part? The hardest part of our job is what you're doing right now. The tape stand-up, hate them. I hate them, man. Because it ain't like, if you're live and you kind of mess up, whatever, you just keep on digging. This thing, you want to be just perfect. I can't stand it. Kills me.
You mind if I get a picture of it?
No.
Because I am a huge fan.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for everything you do.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you for the advice.
Wow, you're doing a good job.
Thank you, sir.
I salute you, Jack, and I salute you, Marty Smith, as well. That was a great moment, and as you can see in the picture, the selfie that came with it from Jack Patterson's Twitter account, quote, "The only thing I can say now is wow. The last 12 hours have been mind-blowing. My sentiment is the same as everyone else. Marty Smith is freaking awesome, and it's a moment I'll never forget. I'm glad it's brought so much love and kindness to others, and by popular demand, the pick." And yeah, that's a very good selfie. I'm not the selfie type, but if I were to judge that selfie on a scale of 1 to 10, that's an 11 in my book. But again, I salute you both. That was a great moment, and just feel good story all the way around for this week for you. Thank you for tuning in. As always, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified when a new video is posted. Go to westthesportsguy.com. Use that hashtag #OneOnOneWest. Until then, I will see you next time.